The first time you met Tokoyami, it was a complete coincidence. Your eyes unconsciously darted up from your book when he wandered into the coffee shop. His beak stood out, distinct against the backdrop of darkness the glass door provided. It was late. Well, early, if you were being technical with the clock. And usually your only company was the barista that liked to pretend not to notice you skulking around every night. Yet here he was. You recognized the hero easily, even without the costume. It wasn't every day you saw a man with a bird head and a wardrobe that boldly incorporated at least 5 different shades of black. He stood at the counter, muttering something unintelligible to the barista before snagging a seat at a table in the corner. Your breath hitched in your throat, and before you knew what was happening, you rose from your seat. Then you crossed the shop, closing the distance to him. "Tokoyami, right?" you asked when you finally reached him, casting a shadow over his table. It'd be a lie to say you weren't just a little nervous, what with the way his eyes narrowed when they latched onto you. His shoulders were visibly tense. This was a terrible idea. You shifted in place, swallowing thickly. "Your feathers look dull," you said, a little too fast. "And frayed. That means you don't get enough vitamin D?"
"Excuse me?"
he said, looking more confused than anything else. And his confusion made sense, because not only did this top 100 hero have a complete rando walk up to him at 3 a.m., trying to stir up a conversation while he was probably trying to de-stress. No, this hero had to deal with a 3 a.m. rando intent on giving him a full health evaluation before they even gave their name. Despite your less than suave intro to the conversation, you continued. "Sunlight, I mean, you usually work at night, so maybe it's hard to get that. Aren't you sleeping during the day?" You immediately realized your mistake, your excessive enthusiasm in asking for information on his sleep schedule. "Oh God, that's a weird question, isn't it? You probably think I'm some sort of stalker. I promise I'm not. Although I can't say how me just telling you that is really convincing, especially considering I just waltzed up to you and started chattering and... Please just cut me off before I talk myself into a deeper hole." Maybe it was your rambling, or maybe it was the tinge of pink creeping across your cheeks, or maybe it was just the way you acted so apologetically as you gripped the sides of your face and stared up at the ceiling. Like that would do anything to make you less flustered. Either way, something in his expression softened, and the hero leaned back in his chair, idly twisting one of his rings.
"I assume you're a fan."
You inhaled. No use denying it. "Yes. I mean, sort of. I saw you on the Billboard television special last week and just kind of went on a Google spree of anything Tokoyami. You know, special moves, education." A squeaky sound suddenly escaped from somewhere at the back of your throat. You weren't really helping your case here. "Oh no, I'm doing it again. I'm not trying to be a creep, really. It's just sometimes I get really excited and I talk a lot, and seeing you here, I'm high-key freaking out because I love..." You stopped yourself because saying it out loud was not an option. It was awkward and mortifying, and you would never in 1,000 years even consider finishing that sentence the way your brain wanted to. But then Tokoyami stared at you expectantly, eyebrow raised, though admittedly you're probably imagining that part, seeing as he doesn't actually have eyebrows, just a little bit of fluff around his eyes, and cocked his head. Curious. You caved under the pressure, desperate to have anything but tense, anticipatory silence. "Birds. I love birds." To his credit, his expression never mocked, never once demonstrated anything other than calm, cool acceptance. The cackling sound emanating from his abdomen, however, made you want to sink into the floor. A hint of a shadow crept out from the bottom edge of his shirt.
Man, Fumikage, Hawks wasn't lying when he said there were some feather freaks out there.
The hero's eyes widened. His shoulders trembled, hands rising off the table and darting down to tug furiously at the dark fabric. The laughter only intensified, and even though you were at least 80% sure Tokoyami is just as horrified as you were, that didn't do anything to ward off the wave of nausea that coursed through you.
Oh, no,
You croaked, hands darting outward all on their own.
Not in like a weird way. I mean, I love feathers, but it's not... Oh God, it's not like that, I swear. I used to have wings. They were really dark, kind of like yours, but then
The words didn't exactly come easily, but you forced them out regardless. I lost them a while back. A high-pitched voice, the same from before, responded.
Lost them? What, did they just fall off or something?
You flinched. No. I'm sorry. It was a bad choice of words. They were, taken from me. And even though it had been nearly a year, even though you made peace with the reality of your situation, became used to the scarred nubs jutting out from your shoulder blades, the words stung. You tried to smile, but you just knew that it probably looked pathetic. Forced.
Dark Shadow, that's enough.
Tsukuyomi's tone was sharp, angry almost, leaving no room for argument. After letting out a frustrated sigh, the creature, or maybe entity was a better word, hushed up. It was awkward for a little while. You just stood there, scratching your neck, looking anywhere but at him. He coughed and you heard his chair creak as he shifted it in his seat. Eager to move on from this tense topic, you stuttered out what you had meant to say this whole time, your real reason for approaching the hero.
I know some really good vitamins. I used to take them, so I know they're the real deal and they might help. You know, with the dull feathers. If you care, that is.
He sighed, long and heavy, then lifted his eyes to meet yours. There was no pity as he pushed one of the chairs out from his table.
I'd love that.
He gestured for you to sit, and it felt like some sort of dream. Your body moved on its own, obeyed and took its seat without any thinking on your part.
And call me Tokoyami when I'm not in my costume. Please.
The week after, you spotted Tokoyami in the coffee shop and asked him if he started taking the vitamins yet. He had. You bumped into him again the following week and asked him if he was working. He told you he was, and even though you could see the improvement in his plumage, you offered to check up with him again next week just to make sure. He told you he'd be working practically non-stop for the next few nights, and asked if you would like to meet sometime during the day, only to discuss feathers, of course. You agreed and cleared out your schedule. You stopped counting the number of times you saw him after that.
Heroes don't usually go out of their way to keep in touch with the fans they meet, right?
You asked, trying to make the words seem mindless and casual as you picked at what was left of your croissant.
I was under the impression they just bumped into them on patrols, nodded politely, then went about their work.
I thought you enjoyed our conversations.
Tokoyami peered at you over the edge of his straw. You still couldn't get used to the fact that this hero, who thrived on darkness, regularly ordered iced tea as his beverage of choice. Iced tea from a coffee shop.
I do, and I like helping out. You know, with the feathery things.
It almost makes me feel complete again. Tokoyami's hand tensed around his drink.
Complete?
Yeah, like a whole person.
you answered. Like I was back when I had my wings.
I know I haven't known you long, so maybe I'm not qualified to have an opinion on the matter, but I don't think you're any less of a person than you might have been before.
You shook your head, smiling, because it was nice that he was trying, but you knew the truth, how things actually were. Tokoyami, however, wasn't fazed by your disagreement.
How? How were you different?
You opted to follow the humorous approach. Well, I could fly, for one. Tokoyami stared and placed his drink on the tabletop.
I can't make you believe me. I understand that. Just know that
He paused for a moment, looking down at his hand and twisting a silver ring on his thumb.
even if it's because you lost something, because you were trying to cope with losing something, I'm glad to have met you.
Without another word, he pulled the ring from his thumb and dropped it on your end of the table. It wasn't a smooth movement. His ring nearly rolled to the ground before he cursed under his breath and caught it at the last second. This time, he placed it straight into your open palm. "What is this?" you asked, examining the engraved circle of metal. It was pretty, to be sure, ornate and with an elaborate design carved into the band.
A gift.
He choked out, his beak hidden behind his hand. There was a quiver in his voice.
I got it from someone a couple of years ago. Someone that taught me you don't always need wings to fly. And now I want you to have it.
You looked down at the ring again, and you could feel your heart thudding in your throat. Tokoyami and you spoke frequently, exchanged advice when you had some to share, but this gesture was different. There was no mistaking the distinct frazzled look on his face, his tense posture. You wanted to babble, to make all sorts of incoherent noises, to shove your face into your arms in a futile effort to hide your blush. You didn't. Instead, you ignored your sense of self-preservation, straightening out in your chair and clearing your throat. "There's a split in your beak." You leaned forward and hovered a finger over the spot on the right of his beak. "Right here. Did you know that?"
No.
He was obviously nervous. His eyes never once strayed from your skin. Admittedly, this was the closest you'd ever gotten to him, at least for longer than a second. "Yeah. I have a fix for that if you're up for it." He nodded, and you were almost certain that beneath that mess of dark feathers, he was blushing twice as hard as you were. That didn't stop you from stretching yourself over the table, closing the distance between the two of you, and placing a long kiss to the top of his beak.